Moon Knight's 5th episode packed a massive emotional punch as Marc and Steven relived their most traumatic childhood memories. We watched it twice, once to bawl like babies, and the second to search for fun little Marvel references hiding in plain sight. So, without further ado, here are 13 Easter eggs that you might have missed while watching episode 5. First up, the medical facility got a name, and it's familiar to fans of the comics. Episode 4 ended with a double whammy. First, it was revealed that Marc Spector had actually been stuck in a psychiatric ward this whole time, and the next was the introduction of Tawaret, the wholesome hippo goddess. Many fans speculated that the facility where Marc was being treated by Dr. Harrow was directly inspired by the comics, and episode 5 confirmed that by giving it a name, Putnam Medical Facility. While it's not named exactly like the one that appears in Moon Knight's 2016 comic book run, it's certainly close. In the comics, Marc's dad admits him to Putnam Psychiatric Hospital to get help for his dissociative identity disorder. When his dad dies, Marc gets special permission to leave the hospital to attend the funeral, but chooses to run because that's the first time Khonshu's voice calls him. Next, Tawaret's boat seems familiar. Marc and Steven take a ride on the hippo goddess's boat as they journey across Duat, the realm of the dead in Egyptian mythology. But eagle-eyed fans will recall seeing the goddess's boat before. The reason it looks so familiar is because a miniature of the same boat can be seen in the fish tank in Steven's apartment, along with other miniature items related to Egyptian mythology. Now, we have the connection to Black Panther. So far in the limited series, we haven't seen many connections between Moon Knight and the overall MCU. It seems like its own tightly contained storyline in a different timeline. But in episode 5, we finally got a direct reference to another MCU movie. When Tawaret is guiding Marc and Steven to the Gate of Osiris in the Duat, she mentions the existence of different versions of the afterlife existing in the universe, including the ancestral plane. And the ancestral plane, of course, is a version of the afterlife for Wakandans where the soul rests after death. Is there a chance we'll get to see the god Bast or Sekhmet in the final episode of Moon Knight? Since they're both parts of Egyptian mythology, there's always a chance, but we'll have to watch the episode just to be sure. Up next, Steven's brother reveal. We were just as shocked as Steven when it was revealed that he had a brother named Ro, or as he's called in the comics, Randall. He only appears for a short time and dies due to drowning, but in the comics, he grows up to join the military and eventually becomes the supervillain Shadow Knight. We probably won't be seeing that in the show, however, since it's going in a different direction with the characters. But it'd be wicked if we got to see a variant of Shadow Knight as a cameo. And now, the one-finned goldfish. Remember Gus the goldfish that Steven has as a pet in episode 1? We kept wondering what was honestly the purpose of this pet. Initially, we thought it was because Steven Grant suffered from a mental illness and was therefore not perfect, so his pet reflected that. But episode 5 took things deeper as we saw Randall drawing a one-finned goldfish with crayons on the day he died. That's the thing about residual trauma. It lingers and manifests itself in different ways, such as the one-finned goldfish Steven has as an adult. The crayon drawing can also be seen later in a frame on Marc's bedroom wall. Next, we have the Later's Gators explanation. Even the most wholesome dialogue wasn't left alone in episode 5. It was just emotional anguish start to finish. Remember how Steven used the phrase Later's Gators while speaking to his mother back in episode 1? Well, episode 5 revealed that it was actually Marc who used to say it to his mother before Randall died. Steven apparently took the phrase from Marc's memories without attaching all the negativity that came with it. Now, onto the reads in Marc's bedroom. In the scene where Marc is yelled at by his drunk mother on his birthday, he throws off his party hat, runs up the stairs to his bedroom, and slams the door shut. Outside his room, you can see a vase filled with large white reeds. These are very similar to the reeds in the Egyptian afterlife, where we last saw Marc after Tawaret's scales finally balanced. This is some great foreshadowing, Mr. Diab. Up next is Watterson Food and Liquor. This is one of those Easter eggs that nod at a certain behind-the-scenes production or crew member. After Marc's mom passes away, we see him standing outside his childhood house and observing her Shiva from afar. He drinks heavily, and behind him, we see a store called Watterson Food and Liquor. This is very likely a nod to Trevor Watterson, who has been co-executive producing every MCU TV series, including Moon Knight itself on Disney+. Pretty cool little tribute if you ask us. And now, the classic comic villain is confirmed. In episode 4, Marc reveals to Layla that he was there the night her father was killed. We didn't get too many details about it then, except that Marc wished he also died that night. Episode 5, however, revisited that plot point. We finally got to see the archaeological dig site massacre, which looked like it was taken directly from the comics. What's different about this scene, however, is that Oscar Isaac's version of Marc actually revealed the name of his commander who gave the order to kill everyone, and die-hard fans of the Moon Knight comics will know his name. Bushman, or Raoul Bushman, is a major antagonist in Moon Knight comics. With episode 5 having confirmed his existence in the MCU, we're thinking he might make a comeback soon. If the show decides to ditch the limited series formula, the second season could perhaps introduce Raoul Bushman as the next badass villain after Arthur Harrow. Next, the Marc Khonshu ritual mirrors comics. It took 5 episodes, but we finally got to see how Marc Spector became Moon Knight and essentially became the puppet of a ruthless god. An exhausted, bloodied Marc slid to the floor underneath Khonshu's statue, was just about to breathe his last. He had a scarf draped around him and was wearing assault gear. Khonshu's booming voice filled the temple, manipulated Marc into accepting the role of Moon Knight. Fans immediately caught the imagery and blocking of the scene and compared it favorably to Jed MacKay's 2021's Moon Knight issue number 1. Mohamed Diab apparently paid homage to the iconic comic book panels, since it's almost a one-to-one recreation of the scene. No wonder the scene had us on the edge of our chairs. Now, onto the astronaut Easter egg. There are plenty of things worth noting in Marc's bedroom. There's that movie poster of the fictional Tomb Buster plastered on his wall. There are toy scales that we'll get to in a moment. And more interestingly, we also see models of rockets and astronauts scattered in his room, including a spaceman toy. That got us thinking. So we looked it up, and we're shocked to find out that there could be a 4th personality. It could just be a reference, but we want to lean more toward the 4th personality theory. The toy is a direct reference to one of Marc's alters, an unnamed astronaut from Jeff Lemire's run of Moon Knight comics. Here's hoping things get crazy in episode 6, and we actually get to see more than a few of Marc's personalities. And next is the Tomb Buster poster. Continuing with Easter eggs found in Marc's childhood bedroom, let's talk about the poster of the fictional movie Tomb Buster. As a child, Marc appears to have really loved this action flick, since the main protagonist is called Stephen Grant, and one of his personality traits is that he's fearless. The poster also includes several other notable names in the credits section, and you need to pause at the right moment to make them all out. One name that appears is Doug Perlin, which is a nod to Doug Mensch and Don Perlin, who created the character of Moon Knight when he made his debut in 1975. Another name is Dylan Beck, who's an assistant production coordinator on the show. We really dig the inclusion of actual production and crew member names as Easter eggs in movies and TV shows. It's like a wholesome inside joke between the people involved. Who doesn't love an inside joke, right? Finally, we have the toy scales. And finally, we have the toy scales that we mentioned earlier. When Marc's on the floor and hugging his knees, there's a set of toy scales next to the full-length mirror, and it's a deliberate foreshadowing of Tuaret's scales on her boat. We are not sure if Marc actually owned these scales when he was younger, or whether it's two realities bleeding into one another, and the scales are just leftover artifacts from Marc's present. Either way, a super cool detail to include. And that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. What was the coolest episode 5 Easter egg? And do you think any of them foreshadow something for episode 6? Tell us in the comments. As always, hit the like button if you liked our video, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on future uploads. Till next time.